All right, guys, welcome back to part 3 of the 10-part Intro to Java Programming tutorial. If you guys haven't seen parts 1 and 2, please make sure that you follow that, and I'll leave a link in the description box below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get back into programming. So in this tutorial, we're going to be learning variables and a few other things. So what is a variable? A variable is a way to represent some sort of data. So let's imagine that we have a box, and in the box we want to put some toys. So that is a toy box, and we can take the entire toy box and move it from one place in the room to the other. So think about that. We are putting stuff into a representational unit, and let's imagine that we have a number, and we're going to start very, very simple. And I'm going to type in this thing called an int. Int x equals 2. So here we put together something called primitive type, and Java has these primitive types, which are ways of representing data. So we wrote int, and Java knows that int is just a number, an integer, and it will essentially look for the representation of that type. And I'm just going to call it x. And what is x equal to? X is just 2. So we always end our lines in Java with a semicolon. So let's reiterate that one more time. We have an integer, and we're going to represent the 2 as x. So we type in int x equals 2, and we end that with a semicolon. So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to call a different number something else. So we'll do something like int y equals 5. So now we just said y is equal to 5. So we're essentially making y 5. And these are called variables. And variables are ways of storing different data into a representational type. So we can now manipulate things like this. And these are numbers or integers, as in Java, they're called integers, whole numbers. And we can add them, we can subtract them, we can divide them, we can multiply them. We could do many things with these numbers. So we're going to go ahead and then say that int sum is equal to x plus y. So now what we're saying is that we're going to add these numbers, and Java knows how to add, and we're going to store it into something called sum, into a variable. So sum will hold the sum of x plus y. So now, how do we know that we're getting the right answer? Well, we can just reuse this system.out.println line so that we can see it on the screen. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this, or you can type it out if you want to. And we're just going to say, hey, this is my variable sum, and I want to see it on the screen. So we have 3 variables here. We have x, y, and sum, and I want to see sum on the screen. So sum is x plus y, which is essentially just 2 plus 5. So we should see the answer 7. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we get. So I'm going to compile this again, and I will run this the same way we did before. And here we see, hello, my name is, and this is just printing out from before. And now we see 7. So let's think about what happened here. Every line is run in order. So Java will run your program line by line. And the first thing it will look for is this a class? Yes, it is. This is my file. This is where all my code should live. The second thing it will look for is this main method. So we have this main method, and Java now says, okay, great. Now I will run everything in it line by line. So it will start at line 3 and work its way down. So that's why we see this printout first, and we see that down here. Then it says, great, you're creating a variable X and you're putting 2 into it. So I have X and now it's represented, 2 is being represented as X. Then the next line is saying Y is 5. So I will take 5 and store it into Y. Then I'm creating a sum, and the sum is just X plus Y, which is just 5 plus 2. And I'm going to put that into sum. Now I'm going to tell the computer, hey, output this to the screen. And I only want you to output sum, which is 7. And that's why we see that. So now, how can we verify what we have in X and Y? Well, we can do the same thing that we did with sum. We can just print it out to the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's copy and paste this system out print line, because that's essentially just going to output things to the screen for us. And we can say, I want to know what's in X, and I also want to know what's in Y. So we're going to run this again, and I'm going to get rid of this top line here. So we should see 3 things on the screen. We should see X, Y, and sum, and we should see them on new lines. So I'm going to compile that, and then I will run it. So remember, you should always compile every single time you run. So let's go and see this on the screen. And here we see X, and it will print out the representation of that. So X is 2. So it will give us 2. Y is 5. It will give us 5. And finally, sum is 7. So that is a very, very brief introduction into variables. And this can be extended further. So I will leave some links down below with more representations of different types. And we will move on and begin talking about strings. So what are strings? So we see string up here, and we don't really know what this is. So a string is a way of representing a sequence of characters in Java. So essentially any word or even just a character like X or Y. And a string must be wrapped in double quotes. So let's go ahead and create our very first string. And every time we put a type, so we're going to create a type string, we need to make sure that we put some sort of variable name. So for string, I will create and call it something like string S. You could call it whatever you want. We can even call it something like hello. It does not matter what we call it. And we're going to set hello. This is just the way we're going to represent it in Java. And we're going to set that to double quotes. Remember to always end your code with a semicolon. And we will say, hello, my name is. So remember, we had this print statement before where we had written, hello, my name is. But now we're just going to move that out, and we're going to create a string variable. And remember, strings are just ways of representing a sequence of characters. And here we will say, hello, my name is, and then you could go ahead and put your name. And now let's see what hello stands for. And we will just print that to the screen. And I will just say, hello. So now we have created a variable string called hello, and we set that equal to, in double quotes, we said, hello, my name is, and whatever your name is. And here we will go ahead and print hello, and we should see, remember, every single line is run in order. So we should see X, then the Y, then sum, and then we should see hello, my name is, and your name. So, like every single time, we need to compile our program. Our computer needs to know exactly what to do. So, Java will convert that into machine code. So, we will run that again. Then we will say Java hello world. And here we see 2, 5, 7 as expected. And now, hello, my name is Christian. And here we see that printed out. So, just a very quick recap. We've learned 2 types so far. We've learned an int, or just a number, an integer, and we've also learned a string. We know what a string is. And one thing you'll notice about the string is that the S here is capitalized. And this will be very important and something that we'll get into later. But keep in mind that the int here is a lowercase I, and there's many different types. These are called primitive types, and I'll go ahead and put a comment here for us. And these are essentially ways where how Java represents these very basic types. And this is a string, and we went ahead and just printed it out to the screen. So that does it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into more variables and more types, and we will write our very second method. So we wrote our first method, which is the one that Java is looking for, which is main. However, we can create our own methods. So this is something we will do in the next tutorial. If you guys haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and do that, and I will see you guys in the next one.